and you get a little notification. So with that, Alicia and I have a presentation that we're going to walk through tonight. Thank you to those of you who submitted some questions ahead of time. We have embedded those questions. And if you do have some questions along, you can feel free to put those in the chat. If it's relevant to what Alicia's talking about, I will try to interject those throughout. Otherwise, we'll save those to the end. But do keep in mind that this is intended to be a general presentation. Benefits is definitely complex and unique. And so there might be some instances where a one-on-one conversation with Alisha will better address some of those questions. Her contact information is going to be at the end, so we'll make sure that you have a way to do that. So with that, I am going to share my screen and we're going to get started. Okay.
Oop.
All right. Everybody
Maybe I turn the
see
screen
that? And if you wouldn't just mind everybody muting yourself, that way we won't get any feedback noise. Okay, Alisha, here we go.
Wow.
Muted me for a second.
Hey, sorry,
Here
yeah,
are
it
some
was
of the
it was
topics.
muted.
Yeah,
Sorry about that.
that's all right, Eric. All righty. So here are some of the topics that we are going to be covering in our presentation tonight. Alrighty, so first we're going to start with some of the acronyms that we're going to come across in this presentation. There's a lot of them. Some of the most important ones that we should be paying attention to are SSA, which is Social Security Administration, SSI, which is Supplemental Security Income, SSDI, Social Security Disability Insurance, DOC, which is Disabled Adult Child, and then some of our state ones that we should be paying attention to are DSS, Department of Social Services, and DDS, Department of Developmental Services. So just a little bit about me. My name is Alisha Anrico. I've been employed at Chapel Haven for almost 5 years. I was a support coordinator in the SLP community for 2.5 years, and I've been the benefits coordinator now for almost 2.5 years. I have my bachelor's and master's degree in social work. And if I'm not at Chapel Haven, you can find me hanging out with my husband or my 8-month-old baby.
And Alicia, I love this because, like many staff at Chapel Haven, you started in one role and you've kind of grown into others. And I just want to share that the person that was in Alicia's role before had many, many years of experience doing that. And we're super excited to have that knowledge passed on to Alicia and have her help us grow into the kind of next decade or so with that. Okay, so if you're already sweating based on all these acronyms, don't worry. We are going to break these down. So, Alicia, tell us, like in a nutshell, when we talk about benefits at Chapel Haven, what does that actually mean?
So benefits at Chapel Haven is a subscription fee, and it's something that families pay for monthly, and I act as the liaison for Chapel Haven with these federal, state, and local programs. And with that, I oversee the monthly maintenance of these federal, state, and local programs. And I also serve as a resource for all of our families in all of our programs. And currently we're serving about 75 community members and their families.
That's great. And so we're going to break down here shortly, like exactly what that resource kind of consultation piece looks like and exactly what entitlements folks might be most interested in based on their program. So that's coming here soon. So actually, leading us to our next question there. So Alisha, you talked about that the subscription fee is something that folks in the community, those graduate programs can access. Can you talk to us a little bit about like what that means to be consultative for somebody who's maybe in one of the tuition-based programs?
Sure. So for consultative, what that is that families like in our REACH program or our ASAP program can reach out to me and we can set up a email chain, a phone conversation, a meeting, however that looks, and I can serve as a resource to them. I can either send them links to different programs, or give them information, explain to them what next steps would be, just act as someone they can serve as a resource.
Fantastic. And then how would that differ from somebody who's getting that fuller subscription service where they're paying that monthly fee?
So with that monthly fee, they'd pay that and then they get access to everything. So that would look like completing redeterminations, doing new applications, having that monthly maintenance, applying for new programs.
Fantastic. And I know coming down the pike here, we're going to talk a little bit about the difference in the benefits that somebody in a tuition-based program can get versus those who are in the graduate community. And I think I'm starting to understand that the subscription is more applicable for the graduate community because they can access so many more benefits as compared to somebody who's living on campus in one of the tuition-based programs.
That's
That'd
correct.
be great. Woohoo, I'm learning. All right. So if like me, you are like Medicaid, DDS, DSS, what? Then Alicia has a really handy little flow chart here that is going to break that all down so that you know how to start out here and then gradually be able to funnel your way into state and local levels. But it really all starts with the federal level benefits. So Alicia, tell us what that means.
Sure. So with that, we're starting at our federal level, which is our Social Security. So reaching out to Social Security and establishing Social Security is step number one, most important step. Getting that established is where you want to start. And then from there, we can look at our state programs because our state programs rely on our federal, on Social Security to deem disability. So then once we have that Social Security puzzle piece in place, we'll look at our state. So then our state will be either DSS or DDS. And with our DSS, that's when we can apply for Medicaid, food stamps, Medicare Savings Program. And once we have that piece in place, then we can look at our local programs, which is your energy assistance, your Southern Connecticut State Gas programs, or your UI, your programs. And they look to our state and federal to prove eligibility for their programs.
Thank you, Alicia. Super helpful. And I did not realize until I started working with Alicia on this, and I frequently get this question from families when they first call in, is that you can apply for SSI at any time if you're a person with a disability. So you don't need to wait until they're 18. And in fact, if I understood Alicia, correct me if I'm wrong, but having SSI already established and in place prior to enrolling at Chapel Haven really gets you a step ahead in then being able to tap into those next level benefits once you move into some of the graduate communities.
That's correct. And right now I know that the waiting time for Social Security to approve is very long. So getting it done sooner rather than later is best.
Yes. So even if you're a prospective family that happens to be on this call and your child is like 16, you could start the SSI process now and go ahead and start making your way through that wait time to get eligible to tap into these other benefits down the road. So, Alicia, this chart that you created for us kind of shows that tuition-based programs like REACH and ASAP, which are down at the bottom of the screen, those are those short-term transition programs living on campus for a couple of years. We see that they only have access really to federal programs through SSI, but that the supported living program and ASAP's community outreach services up at the top really have access to several different things under there. Do you maybe just want to explain like why somebody living on campus in that tuition-based program can't yet tap into some of those other pieces that the graduate community can?
Sure. So are you referring to reach an ASAT or like if you were in part of Bridge?
Yeah, reach. Let's start with reach and ASAP. Yep.
Sure. So For Reach and ASAT, they're only eligible for getting that Social Security piece established, and that's simply because they can't make Chapel Haven their permanent residency, so they can't unlock that state program and then unlock other programs from there.
Gotcha. And so then if somebody's living in Bridge, is this where we can then start to consider that 1040 Whaley Ave as a permanent address where they could unlock the
That's
state level
correct.
benefits?
If they go from Reach and go into Bridge or into Sale, they can establish Chapel Haven 1040 Whaley Ave as their permanent address.
Okay, great. And then, so things like the energy assistance, that obviously you have to be living off campus, right, out in the Westville neighborhood to be able to tap into that because
Correct.
otherwise that would be provided for through Chapel Haven's on-campus housing.
For those that are in our tuition-based programs, Chapel Haven, it's part of the tuition that those utilities are being paid. So those out in the community can access those local programs.
Excellent. Okay. Anything else worth noting here about the difference in what people can tap into before we? Oh, I just got kicked off my screen share. Hold on. Let me pop back over for everybody. There we go. Anything else, Alicia, worth noting here before we move to the next one?
I think the only other biggest piece is that some of the programs noted are eligible for DDS. However, the funding for each of those programs would be different. So the for SLP, they'd be eligible for funding called individualized home supports. Whereas someone in Bridge and Catch or in Sale, they'd be eligible for DDS, but would be eligible for a different type of funding because they're
Th-
not living in the community.
Thank you. Yeah, and I think we have that spelled out even more on a slide coming up too. So thanks, Alicia. Okay, so essentially, while somebody is in Reach or ASAP, what should they be doing to get ready to access those graduate program options?
Sure. So, what they can be doing is A, if they do not have Social Security already in place, they should be looking to get that into place. And once that is in place, what they can do to further get ready is to keep a record of everything and maintain their records, keep those psychological evaluations and those IEPs, and keep paper copy, digital copy, whatever that looks like, and just keep everything on record. So when it's time to apply to those other programs, it's all in one place and as organized can be. And the other thing is that a lot of these programs have certain income and asset limits. And so making sure that those income and asset limits are reflective of those of the program so that way you can qualify for them.
So, Alicia, can you break down that asset piece just a little bit? Like, give us a specific example of what you mean by that.
So if an adult in Reach gets a bunch of graduation money and they have, I don't know, 3 grand in their account, but Medicaid's asset limit is 1,600, looking to spend down that money. So
Hmm.
when they go to apply for Medicaid, they have the 1,600 in there and they don't have that 3 grand in there anymore.
Gotcha. Super helpful. Yes. So, and Alicia, is there anything that you would say about, I know you mentioned keeping psychological evaluations and things like that. I feel like I have heard the age 18 come into play when they're looking at potential diagnosis, but I think that might maybe is for DDS land. I'm not sure if that's for SSI. Is there anything important people need to know about that?
Yeah, that's for DDS, the age of
Okay.
18, getting that disability, you know, having your diagnosis by the age of 18. That's for DDS.
Gotcha. So if I was 25 and I applied to SSI and I was able to do that because when I was 22, I had an evaluation showing that I had autism or an intellectual or disability or something, I would be okay for SSI. But if I didn't have something before the age of 18, then for the Department of Developmental Services, I might be in a tough spot. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, so that's why families make sure you're holding on to those evaluations from childhood. As Alicia said, keep them in a Nice little electronic folder, a nice little backup paper folder, and then you are going to be able to just boop, 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 shoot those off whenever it's time to do those various applications. Okay, Alicia, there are a lot of categories just under Social Security. Will you tell us the ones that are most likely going to be applicable to the folks that we're working with at Chapel Haven?
Sure. So there is a lot. I'd say the two we come across the most are SSI and DOC. So SSI provides that payment to those who are have a disability or are older and have little to no income. And then our DOC benefit is for those who have had a disability before the age of 22 and their parent starts receiving their retirement benefit or disability benefits themselves, and then their adult who received their disability before the age of 22 can start collecting on that parent's record.
Okay, so it seems like age is the big difference there. So SSI, I could potentially tap into benefits at any age, but for DOC, I've got to be after the age of 22.
That's correct.
Okay. And my parent has to also be receiving retirement. Okay. Um, you mentioned before about the 1600 for Social Security. Do you want to talk to us a little bit about what the substantial gainful activity means?
Sure. So substantial gainful activity, also known as SGA, describes the amount that an individual can gross in a given month. Right now, the 2026 amount is 1690 a month. And so an individual working cannot earn more than that 1690, otherwise they risk losing their Social Security benefit. And that's because Social Security will deem them as being able to be substantially and gainfully employed.
And so, Alicia, does that mean that I can't earn more than 1690 a month, or does that mean I can't have more than 1690 per month in my bank account at any given time?
That means that you can't earn more than 1690 a month. The
Okay.
asset limit for Social Security is 2000.
Okay. So I can make 1690, but I could have up to 2000 in my checking account or my various accounts.
That's correct.
Okay. I feel like I'm making progress, Alicia. Okay.
Glad.
All right. We've, I don't know why I keep getting knocked off here. Okay. Sorry about that, everybody. We talked just a little bit. Oh, because we're having questions. So does the 1690 max apply only to SSDI, or I missed Brian the rest of that question. Let me pop over.
That's all individuals getting Social Security. However, SSI has their own process of deeming how they come up with their payment. So that's something that I have to do monthly, which is an SSI wage report. And what that looks like is for every $2 an individual earns, $1 is deducted from their benefit amount. And so I have a connection at Social Security that I send this report to monthly. For those that do not have are not subscribed to benefits and needed to do it on their own, they have until the 6th of the month to report their gross income if they're an SSI recipient, and they can do it in a few different ways. There's by calling in. There's a text, I believe, or like an app that you can log in the information to, or you can go into their online Social Security portal and put that information there. But the 1690 is for all individuals on Social Security.
Hold on. Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So I understand the 1690 is very problematic if you exceed it and you're on SSDI.
Yeah.
However, I was under the impression that there's no maximum monthly income for the SSI. Obviously, if you get enough income, it's going to reduce your SSI payment to zero because of
Correct.
the $1, $2 thing you just described. But this person could have $5,000 of income in the month. It doesn't kick them off of SSI. It just means that their monthly payment is going to be zero because of the formula. Versus SSDI, where if you have too much income, it could kick you off of SSDI. Is that correct?
That sounds right to me.
Yeah. And so remember, Alicia is not a financial planner or advisor or
This is a
attorney.
question about the rules. I'm not asking for financial
No, I
planning.
know. I'm just saying we don't want to, we're going to let Alicia answer like on her best understanding of what's being asked here, but also probably good for a follow-up question. Yeah.
I can follow up with you.
Thanks, Alicia. Yeah, Brian, we'll have her contact info at the end for sure.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Okay, so do I need SSI to apply to Chapel Haven? The answer is no. However, if you have already applied for SSI and you're applying to Chapel Haven, that's just going to get you a step further. But SSI cannot pay for Chapel Haven. I actually get that question quite a lot from prospective families. Um, so Another important question, and we typically will send a letter to families whenever a student is accepted, particularly if they're in the REACH program, about if somebody already has SSI, do they need to tell them anything about coming to Chapel Haven, particularly to be a part of the transition program? And so, Alicia, I think there's two important things here for families to know about that, right?
Yes, two things. So if you're moving into Chapel Haven into one of the transition programs, it's important to report to Social Security that your living situation has changed. And then number two is if you're going to get the allowance in the Chapel Haven tuition, you have to report that to Social Security as they see it as a form of income. If you choose not to accept the allowance, then you do not have to report that to Social Security, and Chapel Haven will deduct that portion from the tuition.
Yeah. So important for them to know that they're going to be in a tuition-based program that includes housing. That's important. And then as Alicia said, that, 500, 600, what will next year be $700 monthly allowance. Social Security will count that as unearned income. So if you don't want that included, then Chapel Haven can remove that from part of the tuition, and then the parent is responsible for self-funding the checking account on the first of each month so that the student has the money they need for the budgeting aspect of their curriculum. And there's some parents who've done a lot of conversation around that this year. So if anybody has a question about that particular part, you can let me know at the end and I would be happy to put you in contact with them about that. Okay, Alicia. So now we've kind of cleared SSI at the federal level and we're going to start dipping into state level. So talk to us about Department of Social Services. What do we need to know here?
So, with the Department of Social Services, we have four programs that we apply individuals for through them, and that is Medicaid, cash assistance, SNAP, which stands for Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, and MSP, which stands for Medicare Savings Program. And so, for our Medicaid, that is our medical insurance here in Connecticut. And there is a couple different types. There's A, B, C, and D. However, the one we come across most often is C. And with that, there's like two branches of type C Husky. And so there's one that's called the age blind and disabled, and then there's one that's called the working disabled, which is also known as MedConnect or the SO5 waiver. And so for the age blind and disabled, the income limit and asset limit is a little bit less. And then with the working disabled, it's a little bit higher for those individuals who are working so they can earn more money. And then for cash assistance, it's a program that provides cash to individuals who have very insufficient income. The income limit for that is very low. And then for SNAP, it's a program that helps our individuals purchase groceries. It's uploaded to a little gray silver card, and they can use it like a debit card at the grocery store. And it helps them pay for their groceries. And then our Medicare Savings Program helps to pay for the Medicare Part B premium.
Okay. Thank you, Alicia. And which of these, Alicia, would you say that you see adults at Chapel Haven, or really we're starting to talk graduate community now. So which of these would you say you see folks most often receiving? Or
Uh,
does it really vary?
Medicaid, SNAP for sure. And then Medicare Savings Program, if they are in Medicare, most of the individuals that are on Medicare also access that. But I'd say the number one is Medicaid.
Okay, great. And yes, Shelley, we are going to send out the recording and the slides, so you'll have access to these. Okay, more about state level benefits. So this was also new learning for me from Alisha, so thank you. So Department of Social Services really houses everything, including Department of Developmental Services. So for some folks on this call, particularly if your adult is in ASAT or has an IQ of over 70, but they have an autism diagnosis, you might be on the autism waiver, which is under the Department of Social Services. But then another little piece of that is the Department of Developmental Services, which does have some specific requirements for accessing, oops, for accessing eligibility. So, Alisha, you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So for the Department of Developmental Services, DDS, it is a program that provides different buckets of fundings to support the individual. And to be eligible for the program, you have to have an intellectual disability that started before the age of 18, have an IQ of 69 or less, be on Medicaid, and be a Connecticut resident. We do not complete the initial application for DDS in the benefits office. However, we do serve as a resource to families to send them the link and resources to accomplish getting that done.
Yeah, I would say this is a question I get a lot from families whose adult is in one of the transition programs, particularly REACH, like when they should start trying to apply for DDS. So they want to make sure they first secured SSI, they want to get all their paperwork in order, and then once they have been able to establish Connecticut residency as either a bridge adult or somebody living in the community, then they can do that DDS process. And we're going to talk in just a minute about what that means to establish Connecticut residency. Alisha, I also wanted to see if you could just talk a little bit about the different types of budgets that are listed over here. Important to know that even if you are a Connecticut resident that had Department of Developmental Services funding like before you came to Chapel Haven, there's not any DDS funding that can be used for the REACH residential tuition. It really is something that becomes most helpful once you're in the graduate community. But Alisha, you want to talk a little bit about what some of these budgets are?
Yeah, so I'm actually going to have Eric jump in here because I don't work with DDS very closely. I just know
Yep.
the acronyms. He can tell you more about each specific.
Hey there, for those who
Awesome.
don't know me, I'm the director of the supported living program. Those are the individuals that when they leave Reach, they live in apartments or condos outside of our community, outside of campus. And I oversee the transition program Catch, connecting adults to Chapel Haven. Those are for older adults who come here and didn't go through Reach. And then Bridge, which is just a little fine tuning before individuals from Reach to go into the community. Um, and for Reach families in particular, if you already have individuals, if your son or daughter has DDS funding or has a Medicaid and all that stuff set up, um, we can work with, we being the director of Reach, Jordan Gerard, and the case manager, and then I would get involved in setting up transition meetings that activate certain waiver or budgets, and I'll explain those in a minute. And then for those families who don't have that and are looking to get that, let me explain what happens. So tuition, we Chapel Haven is a vendor to the state of Connecticut for certain services, residential and vocational. Now, the residential budget is called individualized home supports. We individuals who are in a tuition-based program cannot access the individualized home support bucket until they are in a lease-based agreement off campus. Now, what they can, tuition-based individuals, let's say they are in the bridge program or in the catch program, they're eligible for our day programming, which is the day service option, the DSO, group supported employment, GSE, individual, well, I'll get into that in a minute. What's not on here is customized employment services. We're actually a new vendor for that. And that's another resource where we would job develop for an individual that's on the competitively employable side. Those can be accessed if if you're living in a tuition-based program or not, if you have DDS funding. There is another bucket of funding called individualized day vocation and individualized non-vocation. Those just mean that we support the individual day non-vocation means that we are supporting the individual in activities out and about in the community and not inside their home. It's kind of a fine line between us working with them grocery shopping only. But there's some nuances that the state bureaucracy has to follow. But then there's the vocational budget where individuals might be working with someone specifically with our career ability unit, they're able to tap into those funds. Those become evident when we go through the programming, and those case managers who are, would help us navigate the nuances of their bureaucratic system. So that's the buckets of funding from the state and their eligibility in a nutshell.
Thank you, Eric. And I just wanted to make note, you guys probably don't recognize day service option, but you probably would recognize if I say the community life program. So CLP, community life program, that is our day service option. So many of our grads who attend CLP can utilize that budget to help pay for that.
Yeah, thanks, Christy.
Yep. Okay, Alisha, talk to us about what we got to do to become a Connecticut resident so that we can start tapping into those state level benefits and local benefits.
Sure. So to become a Connecticut resident, it's quite simple. You need to obviously live in Connecticut by paying rent or tuition. Like I had mentioned earlier, those in Bridge, Catch, or Sale could list Chapel Haven, 1040 Whaley as their permanent address. They need to receive mail at their address. They have to go to the DMV and get a valid CT ID, and the DMV has their own separate process of proofs that you need to bring in, which I can always send the family that list. And then you have to be living at that current address for 90 or more days and submit proof of that address, whether that be a utility bill, a lease, pieces of mail, etc.
That's great. And we often tell families who are in either REACH or ASAT or even Catch for that first year that you think of those experiences if you're from out of state like you would go into an out of state college. So you're probably not going to change your permanent address while you're a college student because you don't know if you're going to stay in that city forever. But so same thing, with REACH and ASAT, we want you to complete your programming, make sure that everybody feels like it's a good fit to move into one of the graduate communities. And then at that time, that's when you might choose to make Connecticut residency your permanent place. Okay, so once we've got and Levon just has a question. You don't need to be 1 year for DSS services.
Did I say 1 year? I said 90 days.
Yes, you did.
That's not true. I work for DSS. So to get DSS entitlements, you don't need to live. You can just have an address.
Yeah. But for
okay.
DDS, you need to be a Connecticut
resident. DDS.
Yeah.
I'm talking about DSS. Okay.
Yeah, you could just submit a lease to DSS or whatever to prove your address that is in Connecticut.
Or you can live under the bridge and be homeless, and they'll have DSS as their office, as their address too, or Chapel Haven.
Okay. So Alisha, once we are in the graduate programs, we're living off campus, talk to us about what we can potentially tap into for rent subsidy.
Sure. So rent subsidy is a program that helps individuals pay for their rent through a payment stipend. To be eligible for this program, you need to be on DDS, receive IHS funding, have insufficient income, and where you're living has to meet the protocols set forth by the DDS rent sub.
Okay, so that's a lot of eligibility. So like you've gone from the Department of Social Services to being just a DDS person and a DDS person who gets in-home supports, and your housing has to meet the requirements, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So how is that different from Margot? DDS is a Department of Developmental Services. So it's one of the state agencies that gives folks access to some of the entitlements that we've been talking about this evening. Okay, so how is rent subsidy, Alisha, different from Section 8?
So rent subsidy is for those who are on DDS IHS funding, whereas Section 8, anyone can apply to Section 8. You don't have to be a DDS individual. And with Section 8, it's similar to DDS because it's a rent stipend to help individuals pay for their rent.
Okay, so if somebody couldn't qualify for DDS and still wanted to explore options for housing assistance, then they could go the Section 8 route. But Section 8 housing could be anywhere in the state, right?
Correct. And also right now it's not even open for us in New Haven. There's a waiting list. And in fact, there's a waiting list to a waiting list. And what that looks like is you put your name, your phone number, your email address, and if the waiting list becomes open, you'll be contacted to add your information to the waiting list. And if the waiting list becomes open, then you can look at applying for Section 8.
Wowzer. Okay. So Section 8 is tough right now, and that is unfortunate.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the additional aspect that, would be serendipitous that there would be Section 8 housing in our area. So that
Right.
adds another layer because we have a local range.
Thank you, Eric. That's actually where I was going with Section 8 could be anywhere, but I didn't complete that thought. Yeah, so I was thinking
May
it would
not
be nice, right, for rental assistance, as long as your building or your house qualified, you could be right there in that Westville neighborhood, whereas we don't necessarily have guaranteed Section 8 housing in our Westville neighborhood. Is that correct, Eric?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, Alisha. So for the grads that are out there in the neighborhood and they've tapped into SSI and maybe even DDS or DSS, what else could they look into to help with those monthly costs?
So from there, we have some local programs that we access here right in New Haven. We have our Connecticut Energy Assistance Program, which we access through our Community Action Agency right down the road from Chapel Haven. And that is a program that helps individuals pay for their heating costs. It's usually between $295 to $645 a month. And it's automatically uploaded to their utility bill as to be deducted from their payments. And then the other program we have is for UI and SCG, and they have a low income discount rate, which is either a 10% or a 50% discount, depending on your income and if you're on an automatically qualifying program.
What does UI and SCG mean?
United Illuminating and Southern Connecticut Gas.
So if those are your energy providers, then you
Yeah.
could look into, yeah. And then Alisha, is this something that if someone is has the benefit subscription, are these applications something you can assist with?
They are.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, Alisha, so you have told us about a ton of things that you do through benefits, and clearly you know a lot about it. Tell us a little bit about where we have to draw the line and what we aren't able to do in the benefits office.
Sure. So there's a lot of things we do, but there are some things that we can't do in the benefits. We do not claim to be experts. We cannot give financial advice. We do not choose health insurance programs. We cannot be authorized representatives. We do not manage trusts or set them up. We do not complete the initial Social Security application or the DDS application, and we do not help with Social Security decision appeals.
Okay. And so, because we don't do those things, we are going to give you a couple of resources. These were just gathered from colleagues in the field that had positive reputations and have been around for a while. This is certainly not an exhaustive list of folks that, are either special needs attorneys or financial planners, but these are some folks, like I said, a couple of them are even parents of people with special needs that could be a resource. We do also want to give a little plug that Sunny Richards, our Senior Vice President of Community Programs,
Just press mute again.
I'm sorry? Oh, okay. Uh, Sunny Richards on May 2nd, so the Saturday of Family Weekend at 10 a.m. is going to be giving a benefits talk. And I believe that she's going to have a local special needs attorney join her for that. So if you haven't had enough of that conversation today, you should have received an e-blast with the March newsletter today, and there's definitely links in there for how you can register for that conversation with Sunny. Okay, so Alisha, we are starting to wrap it up. I do see that we've got some people giving us some questions, so we'll get to those. But if you could wave that magic wand and tell everybody, if you do nothing else but these one or two things, what should be their takeaway tonight?
Sure. So number one, getting Social Security in place. If you don't already have it, do it and do it as soon as possible. Number two, like I had mentioned before, staying organized and keeping your documents all in order. Document everything, keep everything in a file.
What would you like next?
Number three, staying on top of Social Security and DSS. Be annoying about it. Continue to contact them until you get your answers.
Excellent. Yes. Don't be like, well, I just didn't hear back from them, so they're probably still working on it. Like, you really do need to be a strong advocate to assist with that or to help make sure that moves along. How about anything, Alisha, we should be aware of, like on the horizon for the benefits department?
Sure, we're currently working on two things. So, one of the things that I got to be a part of was something called the Life Plan, and we are going to be enrolling that soon, and that's going to be a part of these annual review meetings. And it's a plan for our individuals for their benefits, what happens to them in the future, what happens to them when their family members eventually pass on, what happens to them when they're aging. So that way we have a document with all those answers right in place and we get it figured out. As at Chapel Haven, we're recognizing that that was something that we needed. And the other thing that we're looking at is as Chapel Haven is growing past this mom and pop shop and continuing to expand, we're looking to expand benefits as we're realizing that it's important.
Very exciting. I think that life plan is going to be a game changer. So I hope families will definitely stay tuned for that. As promised, we've got Alicia's contact information up here. So if you had a specific question to you or the adult that you work with, this is a great way to be in touch with Alisha to try to, have a little follow-up conversation. We do ask that you be patient because I'm anticipating she might get lots of questions after tonight. So give her a couple of days to be able to return those questions. But Alisha, I think we've had a lot of questions come in through the chat. So I'm going to stop sharing now and just see if we have gotten to all of those. We've got about 15 minutes to try to work through those. Thank you, Eric, for putting all the acronyms in there for all of our programs. We got SAIL is tuition based. We have a question, Alisha, about Husky and the ABCD versions of that. And maybe just talk about the one that's most applicable for Chapel Haven.
So A, B, C, and D, they're all the different branches of our Husky Medicaid program. I think A might be for pregnant woman, B, whatever. But the most common one that we see that we utilize is C, which is for disabled adults or those over 65.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Margot gave a nice little plug for Michael Beloff, who was one of the resources that we put up there. And yes, he is the parent of a young man with special needs. Okay, Vicky, is it common practice after applying for SSI to receive a phone call informing that their SSI has been approved, but not get any written documentation confirming their approval?
You should receive an award letter from Social Security stating how much the benefit is. So I would call them and have them get you that award letter. Verbal communication is not enough. You're
And I
going to need
just,
an award letter.
so we did receive a letter, but the conversation continued. And because she was receiving unearned income through Reach, you said, okay, she said, then you're not going to receive the SSI. However, once that funding has been completed, where she's no longer receiving that unearned income, then all you need to submit is the medical. So after that conversation, we received a letter stating your unearned income is too much to blah, blah, blah. But that was one letter back in December. We never received anything again after that. So you suggest that I could call and ask for documentation? Okay.
Yes, I would.
Okay.
Sorry. And then, yes. So Vicky, we did talk a little bit about that unearned income piece a little earlier, for families to know that, like, if you're going to get the allowance from Reach, that's something to make them aware of. And then that you could also opt to not have that allowance included, so that you don't have that against you, which basically means that the parent would need to fund the checking account each month. Chapel Haven would remove that monthly allowance from the overall tuition that was being paid.
Okay, I was under the impression that the entire program that we were paying for was considered Ally's unearned income. Alisha, is that something that you think that is wrong?
Sorry, ask your question again.
I was under the impression when I was speaking to the representative that it was the entire program, not just the stipend that she's given for budgeting. It was the entire program fees that they were looking at.
As far as I'm aware, it's just the allowance that they count as the unearned income.
Yeah.
Okay, something to think about. Thanks.
And Margot, can I raise your hand just because I know you've had a lot of questions and conversations with folks around this that Vicky might be able to follow up with you about this? Should she have a parent question as well? Okay, fantastic.
She knows how to reach me, I think.
Excellent. Okay.
Yeah.
If not, let me know, Vicky. Now I'll put you guys in contact. Can we assist with setting up a Connecticut ABLE account, Alisha?
We do not.
No.
That's right. We cannot. Interesting fact too, you don't actually have to set up an ABLE account in Connecticut. You can actually choose to set up ABLE accounts in other states, and that is a great conversation to have with a special needs financial planner. Yeah. Can you share, Alisha, what the consultation fees are? So actually, I think I know that answer. There are not consultation fees.
That's right.
That's right. But there is a subscription fee as a graduate that you could tap into.
So Vicky, yeah, for Reach individuals, we consult, and we're actually because I supervise Alisha as well, and we're looking to either get our information and present it during those meetings we have, or we're thinking about the next round of meetings having Alisha be a part of them. But to get you on your way, we can point you in the right direction. There are certain things that we can't do, and it doesn't really make sense for us to get involved. It's once you get that initial stuff set up, then it fits into the subscription service that we have. That it becomes relevant after those things are done. But we can point you in the right direction at no cost. And then we are looking at our fee structure and things like that. And there was a question about, yes, I do oversee Alisha. We have a lot of support from Sunny as well. But I'm currently, as we're growing, analyzing the size of the department and what we can offer. And Alisha, with her MSW and who she is as a person, has a ton of knowledge. And I'm looking to see, again, with volume and things, and where we want to go with what additional supports that we think is necessary. That's an active project that Alisha and I are working on now. But that's the other reason why, when Christy kind of prefaced, just be patient, because when someone has a subscription, there's a lot of monthly things that have to get done at a certain interval. So, like on the 10th of every month, wage reporting has to go out, all of these things. And to add more context and big picture things, one of your pro tips was stay on top of DDS. They don't care if you called once and left a message. It's, well, you didn't talk to a human being, therefore it's your fault. And it's kind of a frustrating thing that the bureaucracy does to us. And so that's one of the things that Alisha has to spend a lot of time on, is making sure that she checks the portal and that she makes those phone calls to see that those things were executed by the state. We do our job, but when they don't, it's still our fault. So again, that's the reason why she's usually good about saying, "Hey, I'll be able to get back to you next week." So she'll acknowledge things, but it does take a little bit of time. So I hope that helps answer those questions.
Thank you. There's a question, Miriam. Yeah, we're going to send out the recording and we'll also send a copy of the slides, but I did just put a screenshot in there too of some of those resources. So, and Peter wanted to know, Alisha, do you handle all the 75 folk? And I think the answer is yes.
That's what Eric was saying. We're
Yeah.
evaluating maybe growing the department and getting extra help in there.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we're also anytime someone becomes DDS eligible and then they activate all those waivers that I spoke about briefly, well, we're responsible for handling their benefits anyway, and therefore they automatically get added to our subscription list. So the subscription list is made up of private pay, and then it also becomes a responsibility of ours to do this if they are getting DDS funding.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, this has, I think we got time for one more question. Levon, if you just want to unmute, you can go ahead and ask your question and then we'll wrap it up.
I just want to make a comment that, Alisha, you did a good job. I work for social services.
I was
I'm
like,
an
I
L-
don't want to crap on DSS because you're in here, but thank you.
Believe me, I'm a trainer for DSS. I do a lot of their trainings, and I'm also a LCSW. So you did an excellent job. I'm really proud of you. You can come work for DSS. Come to the other side.
No.
That's right. No, Levon. Oh, yeah. Somebody else commented that they would need to watch the video 3 times. Listen, I've hosted this webinar almost 3 times and I still am learning new things. So it's a lot to digest for sure. We'll send you the recording. We'll send you the slides. We'll also post it on our YouTube. Alisha actually does have a couple of other great videos. She did one with Sunny last year for our CHAMP committee, and that's a lot of similar things that we covered tonight. So don't hesitate to go back and press play again. But thank you all so much for taking time to attend tonight and for your questions and yeah, taking time to be with us. And Alisha, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you, Eric, as well.
Thank you all.
Well, Alisha, great job, Christy. Thank you, Levon.
Absolutely.
And also, hey, Vicky, we'll be talking, doing it through transition. We'll be speaking about these things. But please reach out to